صل على محمد وعلي محمد وأجل فرجه.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجه.
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الأغرر الميامين، سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وحجته على الخلائق أجمعين، سيدنا وإمام زماننا وصاحب نعمتنا وولي أمرنا مهدي هذه الأمة ودروس أهل الجنة الحجة ابن الحسن العسكري فداه ورواه العالمين صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
One day the Prophet is sitting in the mosque with all his companions, and an old man enters inside the mosque and he says to the Prophet of God, he says, "O Prophet, I am a poor man, I have no money. Is it possible that you could give me some money so that I could buy some food? Also the clothes that I am wearing are old, dirty and ripped. Is it possible that you could give me some money so that I could buy some clothes?" Rasulullah replies back to the man and he says that I don't have anything on me right now, but if you go to my daughter Fatima's house, she would be able to help you.
Subhanallah, Bismillah.
So the beggar leaves the mosque, goes to the house of the Holy Lady, knocks on the door, explains the situation, says that I am a beggar in need of food and clothes, and your father has asked me to bring this request forward to you. So the Holy Lady of Light at that moment is wearing a necklace around her neck. She takes the necklace off and she gives the necklace to the man. She says, "Take this necklace, sell it, whatever money you can make from the necklace, you should be able to feed yourself and you should be able to clothe yourself."
Subhanallah.
So the old man then enters back inside the mosque and he says to the Prophet, "Ya Rasulullah, I went to your daughter's house to ask for something. She's given me a very valuable necklace. So I just want to say, thank you for asking me to go to your daughter." At that moment, Ammar ibn Yasir, one of the companions of the Prophet, says, "Ya Rasulullah, can I buy this necklace from the man?"
Subhanallah.
So the Prophet says, "Oh Ammar, whoever buys this necklace, I guarantee he will be saved from the hellfire."
Oh, Subhanallah.
So Ammar then says to the man, "How much do you want to sell this necklace for?" The man says, "Look, I just need money to be able to feed myself and to be able to clothe myself and go home to my city. So I don't need a lot of money. Whatever you can give me for the necklace, I'll be more than happy to accept." Ammar gives him 20 dinar and 200 dirhams. So the man says, "This is more than generous, Ammar. Thank you so much." So he sells the necklace to Ammar. Now Ammar ibn Yasir is now in possession of the necklace of the Holy Lady of Light. The Prophet explains how great my daughter is, starts doing the fadail of his daughter in front of his companions, that she is the chief of the women of heaven. Her father is a prophet, her husband is an imam, her children are imams, she's the Holy Lady of Light, she has been purified, she has been blessed. He mentions all these fadail of his daughter. At that moment, Ammar goes home, takes the necklace, puts some perfume on the necklace, folds the necklace up into a cloth, gives it to one of his slaves, and says, "I want you to take this necklace to Rasulullah." The slave comes to the Prophet of God. The Prophet then says to the slave that, "O slave of Ammar, I want you to take this necklace and take it back to my daughter." Just follow the journey of this necklace, right? "Take this necklace back to my daughter." So when he enters into the house or knocks on the door of the Holy Lady of Light, she answers the door and he says, "This necklace is yours, I've come to return it back to you." He gives the necklace back to Fatima, and then at that moment, Sayyidah Fatima says, "I have freed you from your service. So you're no longer a slave, you are free now, do as you desire." The moment she said this, he began laughing. So Sayyidah says, what's happened? He says, I am surprised. She says, what are you surprised at? He says, this necklace left the hands of its owner, fed a man that needed food who was hungry, clothed a man who was in need of clothes, gave the wish and desire to a man who was in need of something. Then this same necklace saved Ammar ibn Yasir from hellfire. 6, this same necklace then came back and freed a slave. And 7, it went back straight into the hands of its owner.
Subhanallah.
What a necklace this is. It wasn't the necklace, it was the woman who was the owner of the necklace. As we mentioned, we always start our lectures with a short story for the children, so that I can delve into today's lecture and start the topic. If you could please recite aloud salawat. Today's topic, an interesting topic, is what? Has Imam Ali been mentioned in the Quran? Has he been narrated in the Quran? Is there any verses of the Holy Quran in honor of Ali ibn Abi Talib at all? If so, which ones are they? How many are there? The Shias have a firm belief that the successor of the Holy Prophet, without a shadow of a doubt, was Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Question, has this been mentioned in the Quran? Obviously, if it's a fundamental belief, can you show me in the Quran? How many times has Amir al-Mu'mineen been nominated as the successor of the Prophet from the verses of the Quran? So tonight's lecture is what? The legitimacy of Amir al-Mu'mineen's Khilafat after the Prophet from the verses of the Quran. And inshallah, by the end of this, we will see that even the Quran does Ali. So there are numerous verses in the Quran that we will delve into today. We will analyze those verses, when they were revealed, why they were revealed, in whose honor they were revealed, the tafsir of those verses, and inshallah, in the time that has been assigned to myself, so that we can finish in time for the namaz, we will completely dissect this topic.
Subhanallah.
Ibn Abbas narrates that there are over 300 verses of the Quran that have been revealed in honor of Imam Ali. Over 300 verses. So the minimum that we know from Ibn Abbas is that there are at least a minimum of 300 verses of the Quran in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Let's analyze a couple of them today, and let's dissect Amir al-Mu'mineen from the Quran, and let's prove that he was the successor of the Prophet appointed by Allah from the verses of the glorious Quran. The first verse that was revealed in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen and an indication to Amir al-Mu'mineen was what? Was chapter 26, verse 214. The purpose of this lecture is every verse will be quoted. I will give you the name of the surah, I will give you the number of the chapter, I will give you the number of the verse, so that you can later go on and look at it yourselves. So chapter 26, verse 214 says what? It says that the Prophet did not announce his prophethood until he reached the age of 40. When the Prophet was 40 years old, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a verse in the Quran to the Prophet saying that you are now a prophet that is publicly going to declare his message. A lot of Muslims say that the Prophet didn't know he was going to be a prophet, and that when he reaches the age of 40, he saw Jibreel and got scared, and Jibreel shook him and said, no, you are the Prophet. The man who Jibreel was created in front of, you're asking me that he got scared? No, our Prophet knew he was a prophet. He just publicly declared it at the age of 40. When the Prophet reached the age of 43, Allah revealed this verse, chapter 26, verse 214. What does it say? And warn your nearest of kin. Okay, how does this relate to Imam Ali? When this verse was revealed, warn your nearest of kin, basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying to the messenger, Ya Rasulullah, before you publicly proclaim the religion of Islam to the masses, first I want you to tell your family about Islam. I want you to educate your family. They say that if you want to see change in a society, then you need to change your home first. Right? You start off by fixing your own household, then you move on to others. There are many people who always say Islam says this, Islam says this, Islam says this, and you look at his own house, far away from Islam. So the Prophet was told, warn your nearest of kin, tell them that you are a prophet, get them to accept the religion of Islam. So the Prophet calls Amir al-Mu'mineen. How old was Imam Ali? 13. How old was the Prophet? 43. 30-year gap. He says, oh Ali, I want you to prepare food for me and invite our family, Bani Hashim. I have a message to proclaim. They said, if you ever want to get a group of people together, tell them that there is going to be food. They will come straight away. When you want to hold a majlis for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, tell them there is going to be food. In the announcement, they will come straight away. Niaz Hussein. So the Prophet knew these Arabs might not come. Oh Ali, tell them there is food in my house tomorrow. Watch them all come.
MashaAllah.
So all the uncles of the Prophet, Abu Lahab, Abu Talib, Hamza, they all come to the house of the Prophet. They all eat. Once the food is finished, the Prophet stands up to make a statement. As he's about to talk, he says, oh people, I have to deliver a message to you. Abu Lahab at that moment, or Abu Jahl at that moment, stood up and said, no, we don't want to hear your message. Right? We've eaten, we're full, come on guys, let's go. So they all got up and left. So the Prophet said to Imam Ali, Ya Ali, prepare food again. Invite them again tomorrow. Tell them again, there is food in my house. Tell them to come. So they come. The Prophet is now delving into his conversation. What was his conversation? After they'd finished eating, the Prophet stood up and says, oh my family members, oh Bani Hashim, I have come to warn you that I am a messenger of God. Just as God spoke to Adam, spoke to Abraham, spoke to Moses, spoke to Jesus, I am a continuation of that message. I am the final seal of the prophets. So they're all listening. Then the Prophet says something interesting. He says, which one of you will be the first man to testify and accept that I am the Prophet of God? That man will be my successor. Right. Now we have Muslims coming forward and asking us a question. Where is it written that Imam Ali was the successor of the Prophet? Where can you show me proof that Imam Ali was the successor of the Prophet? And one thing that the Shias do, and there's no problem in doing this, but they jump straight to Ghadir. Right? They jump straight to the verses of Ghadir where the Prophet elected Amir al-Mu'mineen. No. Ghadir was at the end of the message of the Prophet's life. Dawat-e-Dhul Ashira was day one of Islam. From the first day of this religion, the Prophet declared, Ali is my successor. I have a question. Where were the Khalifas at this time? When Dawat-e-Dhul Ashira was happening, where were the Khalifas of Islam? They weren't even Muslim. They were bowing down to idols. Amir al-Mu'mineen was there declaring Islam at the age of 13. And the Caliphs were what? Bowing down to dates, to halwa, and then eating their God after they prostrate to their God. Oh no, Imam Ali was 13 years old, man. What does he know about this religion? Another accusation. Imam Ali was 13, man. What does he know? He was a young boy. Okay, Imam Ali was a young boy. Let's talk about Imam Ali as a young boy. In fact, 13, let's go to Imam Ali at the age of what? 3 days old. Forget 13 years old. Let's go back to 3 years old. Amir al-Mu'mineen comes into this world. He hasn't opened his eyes for 3 days. Fatima bint Asad gives Amir al-Mu'mineen to the Prophet. Rasulullah holds Amir al-Mu'mineen 3 days old. Amir al-Mu'mineen opens his eyes for the first time and he looks at Rasulullah. Rasulullah says, Ya Ali, say something to me. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Ya Rasulullah, shall I talk from the Torah? Shall I talk from the Zabur? Shall I talk from the Injil? Shall I talk from the Quran? Rasulullah says, Ya Ali, those 3 books were sent to other prophets. The Quran is what? Going to be revealed to me. Hasn't been revealed yet. It's going to be revealed to me, Ya Ali. Talk to me about the Quran. The first thing Amir al-Mu'mineen says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, the believers are successful. Rasulullah turns to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ بِكَ Ya Ali. The believers are successful. Why? Because of you, Ya Ali. The believers are successful because of you, Ya Ali. You're saying that a 13-year-old boy didn't know what Islam was. I'm telling you, a 3-day boy is speaking verses of the Quran that haven't even been revealed yet.
Subhanallah.
So his age wasn't an issue. His age wasn't a factor. Then what did the Prophet say? Which one of you will accept me? A 13-year-old boy stands up, Ya Rasulullah, I will accept you. What did the Prophet say back? He said, Ya Ali, Anta Akhi, wa wasi, wa khalifati min ba'di. Ya Ali, you are my brother, you are my wasi, and you are the Khalifa min ba'di, after me. Oh Muslims, don't ask me who the successor of the Prophet was. The Prophet already said, Ya Ali, you are the successor after me. Day one, successorship has been closed. You can't argue the matter. Then he turns towards Bani Hashim and says, what? Oh uncles, oh family members, oh relatives, from this day forward I am your Prophet and Ali is my successor. Therefore after me, you have to obey him. Some people laughed. Abu Talib, the father, has to now obey Ali the son. Criticisms. But what? This verse was revealed, and warn your nearest of kin. Another question. What do you mean this verse was revealed for Imam Aliyun? Show me Ali's name from the Quran. Then I will believe. The response that we have back to that is very straightforward. We say what? Allah reveals a verse in the Quran in chapter 9, which is known as Surah Tawbah, verse number 40. What does he say? He says, and there were two people in a cave. Okay, who was in the cave? The first Khalifa was in the cave. Can you show me his name in the verse?
No.
So how do you know that the verse is talking about the first Khalifa being in the cave with the Prophet? His name isn't there. You want to see Ali's name? Show me his name. No. What you do is you look at when a verse was revealed. You look at the situation of when the verse was revealed. You analyze the tafsir of that verse, and then all together you put all this together, and then it tells you who the verse is talking about. So necessarily may not have the name of the first Khalifa, but of course history has proven he was in the cave with the Prophet. The chapter 9 verse 40 was revealed for the first Khalifa. Right, but when it comes to Imam Ali, you want to see his name. But when it comes to your, you got to look at the tafsir, you got to look at the verse, you got to look when it was revealed, you got to look why it was. This enmity that they have towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, I guarantee you, even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to write in the Quran, Ali is the successor of the Prophet in plain words, Muslims today still would say, yeah, but what do you mean successor? So it doesn't matter whether his name is there or not, they still would have found a criticism. So the first verse that was revealed in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen was chapter 26, verse 214. Next verse in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen was what? Surah Baqarah chapter 2, verse 207. What does this verse say? This verse says that the kuffar of Makkah wanted to assassinate the Prophet. They wanted to kill the Prophet. In order to kill the Prophet, what they needed to do was they couldn't get one person to kill the Prophet. Why? Because then the family of the Prophet would ask for the blood of revenge. You kill one of ours, we kill one of yours. So what did they do? They got 40 men together from 40 different tribes, and they said, if all 40 of us stab the Prophet at the same time, you can't determine which strike was the death blow. Right? So Bani Hashim can't say, we want a revenge for the blood of killing the Prophet. You don't know who killed him? We're going to punish all 40 people? So this was the plan. Prophet was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to leave the city of Makkah and I want you to migrate towards the city of Medina. As the Prophet is leaving, he has a conversation with Imam Ali. If you haven't read this conversation, please read it. It is one of the most beautiful conversations that have ever taken place between the Prophet and Imam Ali. It's a conversation where Imam Ali sums up his entire life and what he believes in a few sentences. The Prophet says, Ya Ali, the kuffar are going to try and kill me tonight. What's their plan? They're going to stab me. When? When I'm asleep. I have a request. What's that request? Ya Ali, I need you to sleep in my bed, aid my escape, while I leave the city of Makkah. Can you do this for me? What does Imam Ali say? Now, let me ask you a question. When you're in this situation, right, where somebody has just said to you that somebody is trying to kill me, and what I need you to do is I need you to sleep in my bed and aid my escape, right? What's the first question that you ask? The common question. Will I live to see tomorrow? Right, it's a common question. Ya Rasulullah, they're going to kill you. If I take your place, they're going to kill me. Will I live to see tomorrow? First thing that Amirul Mu'mineen said to the Prophet was what? He said, Ya Rasulullah, if I sleep in your bed, will your life be saved? That's all I care about, Ya Rasulullah. Will your life be saved? The Prophet said, yes, Ali, my life will be saved. Amirul Mu'mineen at that moment goes straight into sajda shukr and says, Ya Allah, thank you so much for choosing me for this task. I will sacrifice my soul for the Prophet. Amirul Mu'mineen lays down in the bed of the Prophet, covers the blanket up. Now, we say that Amirul Mu'mineen never really used to sleep much, did he? Because he used to spend all night in worship, right? They say that Imam Ali used to read 1,000 rakat namaz every night. So once Amirul Mu'mineen was asked, Ya Ali, what's the best sleep you ever had? Amirul Mu'mineen says, the best sleep that I ever had in my life was when I was sleeping in the bed of the Prophet, aiding his escape. That was the best sleep I ever had. We ask, Ya Ali, they're about to come and kill you. Shouldn't you be fearful? Amirul Mu'mineen says, no, I have this much yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I slept like a baby. Comfortably, no doubt. What happens? The kuffar are about to come and kill who they think is the Prophet, right? And at this point, right, the Muslims don't know who Ali is, right? There hasn't been any battles in Islam. The Imam hasn't introduced his bravery yet. They don't know what the strike of Ali is. They don't know. So just before this happens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a conversation with Jibreel and Mikael. Chapter 2. Verse 207. Subhanallah. The verse of the Quran says, and among men there are those who sell themselves for the pleasure of Allah. So this Quranic verse is speaking about Imam Ali selling his soul for what? The pleasure of Allah. What was the pleasure of Allah? That the Prophet lives. What was the selling of the soul? Sacrificing his own life. Right? So now Allah says to Jibreel and Mikael, if you read the tafsir of this verse, what does it say? Tafsir Nur al-Thaqalain, if you pick up Tafsir Nur al-Thaqalain, that's been attributed to our Imams, it says that Allah one day calls Jibreel, calls Mikael. He says, O Jibreel, O Mikael, if I was to extend the life of one of you and I was to shorten the life of the other, whose life shall I extend and whose life shall I shorten? So Jibreel says, Ya Allah, extend my life. Jibreel says, Ya Allah, extend my life, Mikael, my life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I am asking you, whose life shall I extend and whose life shall I shorten? You are both saying, oh Allah, extend my life. Right now on this earth there is a man by the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib who is sacrificing his own life in order to protect the life of the Prophet. Go down to the earth, circulate the bed and protect Ali ibn Abi Talib. The morning comes, the kuffar enter, they remove the sheet. They see that this is not the Prophet, it's Imam Ali. Subhanallah. So what do they say? Who are you? He says, I am Ali ibn Abi Talib. They say, where is the Prophet? Where is Muhammad? Imam says, he's gone. I don't know. What are you doing here? I'm just sleeping. So one man says, look, if we can't kill the Prophet, let's kill this guy. Let's just kill this guy. The moment the man said that, Amirul Mu'mineen got out of the bed, took out his sword, struck the guy once, killed him instantly. Then turned towards the 39 remainder people of Quraysh, and he said, is there anybody else that wants to face me one-on-one? All 39 men ran from the house of the Prophet. See, running away was something they were quite good at. It was normal, wasn't it? What happened in Uhud? They ran. Khaybar, they ran. Khandaq, they ran. Hunayn, they ran. How many times? So Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I am here to protect the Prophet. The second verse that was revealed in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen was chapter 2, verse 207 of the glorious Quran. Now there's so many verses, we can't go through all of them. So one or two more inshallah, and then obviously time will be up and we will go straight on to the Masahib. If we can, inshallah, we might extend this lecture on to tomorrow and maybe mention a few more verses. Next verse that was revealed in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen was at the incident of Ghadir. Right? One of the questions that we get is, oh Shia, you say that Ghadir Khum was the point and the place where Amir al-Mu'mineen was elected as the successor of the Prophet, but where has this been narrated in the Quran? Right? Where in the Quran is this? I say there are two verses in the Quran that talk about Ghadir, not just one.
Bismillah, subhanallah.
Allah mentioned Ghadir twice in the Quran. Where? The Prophet is returning from his final pilgrimage. He reaches an area known as Ghadir Khum. As the Prophet reaches Ghadir Khum, Jibreel comes down to the Prophet. He says what? The Quran chapter 5 verse 67. Chapter 5 Surah Ma'idah verse 67. What does it say? It says, Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, fa in lam taf'al fama ballaghta risalata. O Rasulullah, proclaim that message. Allah is saying, proclaim that message that I have revealed unto you, for if you do it not, you have not conveyed anything at all. For if you do it not, you have not conveyed anything at all. What does this mean? Anything at all. Right? Let's talk about this. Allah sent 124,000 prophets. 123,999 prophets have one message. Tawheed, Islam, religion, right? Our prophet is what? The seal of all the prophets. So that means our prophet's message is a continuation of Jesus' message, right? Of Abraham's message, of Moses' message. And now Allah is saying, oh Muhammad, Risalat is incomplete if you don't proclaim something right now.
Allahu Akbar, subhanallah.
So that means whatever the Prophet is about to say has to be so important that it completes the message of the prophets. What is this message? So the Prophet stops. Those that have gone ahead, he tells them to come back. Those are behind, he waits until they join. The Prophet creates a pulpit from the camel saddles. He ascends that pulpit. He begins to talk to the Muslims. He says, oh Muslims, soon I am going to leave you. I'm going to return to my Lord. Right? Now, one thing that I usually say is if Allah has a verse of the Quran that is so great that, oh Muhammad, if you don't proclaim this message, فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَةَ, your entire message is incomplete, then there has to be another verse that after the Prophet says that message, Allah needs to confirm that message and he needs to say, Ya Rasulullah, now that you've given that message, I confirm with the Quran, you have given and you have delivered that message. Saying what? That your religion is now complete. We need a verse that attests to the first verse. So what does the Prophet say? I'm leaving you soon. No verse comes. Be careful after me. No verse comes. Obey Allah after me. No verse comes. Inni tarikum fikum muthaqalain, kitab Allah wa itrati ahl bayti. I am leaving you two weighty things, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Ma in tamassaktum lam tudillu ba'di abada. They will never be separated from each other, so stick on, hold on to them. Nothing comes. Then the Prophet says, Ya Ali, come here. Amir al-Mu'mineen stands up, joins the Prophet on the pulpit. The Prophet holds the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen, raises his hands up towards the skies. The Prophet says what? Allahu mawlai wa ana mawla al-mu'mineen. Man kuntu mawla fahadha aliyun mawla. Allahumma wali man wala Ali wa adi man ada Ali. Haqqu da'iman ma Ali wa aliyun ma al-haq. Says what? Allah is my mawla, Allah is my master. I am the master of all the believers. If you take me as your master, then after me you have to take Ali as your master. Oh Allah, love those who love Ali. Hate those who hate Ali. Ali is always with the truth. The truth is always with Ali. He mentions all this. The moment he stops, Jibreel comes again. The moment the Prophet said, Man kuntu mawla fahada Aliyun mawla, Jibreel comes down again with a verse of the Quran. What? Chapter 5, verse 3. Surah Ma'idah again, chapter 5, verse 3. What does it say? Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu ni'mati. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. This day I have perfected for you your religion. And I have completed my favor unto you. And I have chosen for you Islam as your religion. So what's the consensus of Ghadir in these two verses? It says that the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen, number one, Allah told the Prophet to say this. Number two, the Prophet stopped his companions and proclaimed this. Number three, if the Prophet did not declare Amirul Mu'mineen as his successor, his message would have been incomplete. Islam would have been incomplete. Number six is what? It says that Islam was completed because of the wilayat of Imam Ali. The favor of Allah upon you Muslims today is the wilayat of Ali. And finally, Islam came to its pinnacle and perfection was due to the wilayat of Ali. Two verses, chapter 5 verse 67 and chapter 5 verse 3. Ghadir. So if anybody ever doubts you and says where in the Quran has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elected Imam Ali as a Khalifa and as a successor, mention these verses. And due to time restrictions, I only have time for one more. And that is what? That is the Quran again, chapter 5 verse 55. Surah Ma'idah, chapter 5 verse 55. Now just before this verse was revealed, 3 Jews came to the Prophet. They said, "O Prophet, O Muhammad, we're Jews. We follow Musa and Harun." In Nabi Musa's lifetime, he elected Harun to become his successor. You, O Muhammad, in your lifetime, who do you elect to become your successor? Right? Musa elected Harun. We all know this, all Muslims accept this. Yeah, Musa elected Harun in his lifetime. So, O Muhammad, who do you elect to be your successor after you? In your lifetime. At that moment, there's a hadith that we have. What is that? Ya Ali, anta minni bi manzalati Haruna min Musa. Ya Ali, your position and status to me is like that of who? Of Harun to Musa. So what was the Prophet saying? Just as Musa elected Harun, I am electing Ali. But nonetheless, he said, okay, you want to know who my successor is? Yes, please. In your lifetime, who is your successor? Abu Dhar Ghafari, one of the famous companions of the Prophet, is narrating this story. He says the moment the Prophet was asked, who is your successor? He didn't answer straight away. He paused for a few moments. When the Prophet paused, Jibreel came down. He presented a verse to the Prophet. Chapter 5, verse 55. Now when this verse was revealed, Rasulullah would narrate the verse to his companions. So the verse says what? إِنَّمَا وَلِيَّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُعْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. You have a problem with the word Mawla at Ghadir. But what about this verse? This verse says Wali. What's your issues here? What does the verse say? Allah is your Wali. After him, the Prophet is your Wali. After the Prophet, it is those people that are believers, that establish their prayers, that give zakat whilst in the state of ruku. So now there are 4 stipulations to this verse. Other Muslims translate this verse as saying, and bow down, right? Not wahum raki'un, and bow down. So your wali is Allah, the Prophet, people who pray, people who give zakat. They didn't hear. How many people do you know today that are believers, that establish prayers, that give zakat, and that they bow down? So then who's your wali? Allah's not going to leave it so open. The Arabic grammar that's used is past tense. Wahum raki'un, not raki'in, raki'un. Why? That this person has already been in the state of raku in order to give charity. You can't just give charity and bow down. Plus namaz, is raku not a part of namaz? It is, isn't it, right? You have ahkam of namaz, qiyam, raku, sujood, tashahhud. So Ya Allah, you said, وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, they pray. So why did you have to mention ruku separate from prayer even though it's a part of prayer? Allah will say, because something special has to happen in this ruku. Something distinguishing has to happen in this ruku. Something so good that it differentiates you from him. So now this verse has been revealed. The Muslims are now even more confused. Who's this guy that's giving zakat in the state of ruku? All of a sudden, the Prophet gets up to go to the mosque. He sees a beggar leaving the mosque. The Prophet turns towards the beggar. He says, "Oh beggar, what are you doing here?" He says, "Ya Rasulullah, I am poor. I have come to the mosque for some zakat." The Prophet says, "Okay, did you receive any zakat?" He says, "Yes, a man gave me something." The Prophet said, "What was that man doing?" He said, "Oh, he was reading namaz." The Prophet said, "In what state was he?" He said, "He was in ruku." The Prophet said, "What did he do in ruku?" He said, "He gave me zakat." He said, the Prophet said, "What did he give you?" He said, "He gave me his ring." The Prophet said, "Who was this man?" He said, "Aliyun ibn Abi Talib." So the Prophet turned towards those Jews and he said, "You're asking me that Harun and Musa were elected in their lifetime. You're asking me who is my successor during my lifetime? Well, he has to be a believer. He has to establish namaz. He has to give zakat. He has to be in the state of raku. Right now you are a witness that the beggar said, I received zakat from who? A man who was in the state of raku. Whilst praying, he was a believer and he gave me his ring." So the Prophet said, if you want to ask me who my successor is during my lifetime, it is Ali ibn Abi Talib. So these verses that we have mentioned are just 3 or 4 verses, and again, like we said, when we talk about Imam Ali, time doesn't hold any value, right? We could talk for years and years and thousands of years about Imam Ali. We still won't be able to do justice to the Imam. We still won't be able to get to the true pinnacle of the fadail of Imam Ali. I could literally sit here for 1 hour, tell you hadith after hadith after hadith about Imam Ali. Even then the Prophet would say, you haven't even touched a drop in the ocean of Ali. We can try for many years, but we won't be able to. So just to recap, the first verse was revealed, chapter 26, verse 214, Dawate Dhul Ashira. The second verse about Imam Ali was chapter 2, verse 207, was what? The night of migration. The third verse about Amirul Mu'mineen was revealed in chapter 5, verse 67, Ghadir Khum. The fourth verse was revealed again, chapter 5, verse 3 of what? Ghadir Khum. The fifth verse of the Quran that has been revealed about Imam Ali was chapter 5, verse 55. And all 5 of these verses of the Quran attest to the wilayat and successorship of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib being the Khalifa bila fasl after Rasulullah. But we've only mentioned 5 verses at the Khatam here. 5! There's 300. We've mentioned 5 and my time is finished. So inshallah tomorrow we'll continue on with the verses of Amirul Mu'mineen, and we will also carry on with another topic that I want to touch upon tomorrow is what? Ya Ali Madad from the Quran. That's my topic tomorrow. Right? Ya Ali Madad from the Quran. The permissibility of asking help from other than Allah from the Quran. If you have friends that are not Muslims, they usually ask you in your day-to-day life, why do you Shias ask Ali for help? Bring them tomorrow. When they leave, they will also say Ya Ali Madad. Tonight in the Masayib, I would like to remember Qasim ibn al-Hasan, the orphan of Imam Hassan, the nephew of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When we remember Qasim, I always start the Masayib of Qasim with a story from Shabi Ashur. The story is that one day Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas is sitting down talking to Aliyun al-Akbar. Right? These two are having a conversation. What were they saying? Hazrat Abbas was saying, "Oh Ali Akbar, tomorrow let me go first and you go after me." Why? Hazrat Abbas says, I am the back of Abu Abdullah. Right? What did Abu Abdullah say when Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas passes away? My back has now been broken. What did he say when Aliyun al-Akbar died? The noor of my eyes has finished. Right? So Ali Akbar and Hazrat Abbas are having a conversation. Hazrat Abbas says, Ali Akbar, let me go first because I am the back of your father. Ali Akbar says, no, Uncle Abbas, let me go first. I am the eyes of my father. So when these two were talking and saying, I am the back of Hussein, I am the eye of Hussein, all of a sudden Qasim enters into the tent. He turns towards Hazrat Abbas. He turns towards Aliyun al-Akbar. He says, if you are the eyes of Hussein and you are the back of Hussein, who am I but the orphan of Hussein? I am just a yatim. Let me go first. At that moment, Aba Abdullah comes into the tent. He hugs Qasim. He kisses Qasim. He says, Qasim, don't you dare say that you are an orphan. I am your father. On the day of Ashura, they say that after the companions had been killed and the Ahlul Bayt were now going to fight, Qasim came to ask permission from Aba Abdullah numerous times. But every time he would ask for permission, Aba Abdullah would also say no. Qasim, you are the orphan of my brother Hassan. You are the looks of my brother Hassan. You are the lineage of my brother Hassan. I can't allow you to go. Until finally Qasim goes to his mother. He says, oh mother Farwa, Aba Abdullah is not giving me permission to go and fight. What can I do? She says, oh Qasim, you have a band on your arm. In that band there is a letter written by Hassan. Give Aba Abdullah that letter. At that moment they say Qasim came, took the band off his arm, opened up the letter, gave it to Aba Abdullah. Imam Hussein opens up the letter. The moment he begins to read, he starts crying immensely. What was it? It was the letter of Hassan saying, oh my brother Hussein, there will come a time on the plains of Ashura when you will be all alone. There will be nobody to help you or support you. I want my son Qasim to go as my special sacrifice. At that moment Qasim says, uncle, can I please go and fight? Aba Abdullah begins crying. It comes to the stage that the Maqtal says that all of a sudden Qasim would take the hands of Imam Hussein. He would start kissing the hands of Hussein. He would fall onto the ground. He would kiss the feet of Aba Abdullah. They would hug each other until they both fell unconscious. When uncle and nephew regained consciousness, Aba Abdullah would say to Qasim, Qasim, please go towards the battlefield. As Qasim was going, he wouldn't walk towards the battlefield. See, Qasim would run towards the battlefield. When they got Qasim ready, they got the amama of Imam Hassan. When they placed it on the head of Qasim, they realized that Qasim was a 13-year-old boy. His head was so small, the amama was too big. So they had to cut the amama in half, make it again, and place it on Qasim. Qasim couldn't wear armor in the Battle of Karbala because he was too small. Armor wasn't made for his size. So Qasim enters into the battlefield. He begins fighting ferociously. He reminds everybody of Imam Hassan in the Battle of Jamal and Siffin and Naharawan. As Qasim is fighting, all of a sudden, Qasim would call out loud. He would say, In tunkuruni fa'ana najlul Hassan, sibt al-Nabi al-Mustafa wal-Murtahan. He would say that I am the son of Hassan. I have come to defend my uncle Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. All of a sudden the sandal strap of Qasim's sandal would snap. As Qasim would go down to fix his sandal, all of a sudden the enemy member would attack Qasim with a blow so ferociously on the head of Qasim that Qasim would fall onto the ground. I ask you that whenever somebody fell in Karbala, what would they say? They would say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, right? Ali Akbar, Awna Muhammad, Abbas, all the companions, they would all say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Qasim didn't say this. When Qasim was hit so hard, as Qasim was falling to the ground, he didn't say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. What did he say? He said, uncle, please come and help me, I have fallen. Ammi adrikni, please come and help me. As Imam Hussein is rushing towards Qasim, they said that Abul Fadl al-Abbas and Imam Hussein, both of them were going towards the body of Qasim. So the enemy thought that Imam Hussein and Abbas are now going to attack us. Right? They thought that they are coming to attack us. What did they do? All the horses from the left began running to the right. All the horses from the right began running to the left. What did they do? They trampled on the body of Qasim to such an extent that when Aba Abdullah arrived at the body of Qasim, Imam Hussein couldn't recognize Qasim any longer. There were just pieces of Qasim on the floor. The Imam would take out his abba. He would put Qasim into his abba. He would roll it up. He would take it back to the tent. He would place this down on the floor. The women would come. They would say, Ya Aba Abdullah, when Ali Akbar died, you brought him back to the tent. When Muhammad died, you brought them back to the tent. When the companions died, you brought them back to the tent. Ya Hussein, Farwa is asking, why did you not bring my Qasim? Where is my Qasim, Ya Aba Abdullah? At that moment, the Imam would open his turban. He would open it up in front of Farwa. He would say, Oh Farwa, do you want to know where your Qasim is? See these pieces that I have gathered in my Abba. This is your Qasim. Allah la'natullahi lil-qawmi al-dhalimeen wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayyun qalbin qalbun salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.